So there were also conflicts in values and beliefs. And conflicts, if you remembered, problems, wars, um, and in this case, it's because of their differing beliefs. Native Americans saw the colonists' relative immunity to diseases, and they were pretty upset by it. And some of them would have believed that the colonists had done this purposefully to attack the Native Americans. Then, obviously, there's this competition for land and resources. The Native Americans had been thriving on their own land and had sustained themselves from their own resources, but that was just amongst themselves. Now, when you have this influx of all the Europeans coming in, they're also needing the same land and they're hunting and fishing in the same areas. And they're taking away from stuff that the natives would have already had. And obviously, the Europeans were upset because there wasn't enough for them because the Native Americans had it. So both sides are fighting for land and resources. One of the more famous wars is often called either the First Indian War or King Philip's War. And the king's brother was with the colonists. He had been captured for a time, and he died of disease while he was with them. Does not mean the colonists gave the disease to him, but he died of disease. And then his brother takes over. When the brother died of disease, he was the king of the tribe at the time. So now his brother takes over as of the tribe, and all the colonists that are around that area believe that that tribe is going to seek revenge and that they're going to come after them. So they just attack themselves. It's a preemptive attack. Proportionately, that means given the amount of people that were in that area at the time, it's considered the deadliest war in U.S. history because so many people within a small area died. The settlers tried to force the Native Americans to act and think like civilized nations of the time. I use that in quotations because civilized doesn't mean with manners or anything like that. But at the time, that's what they would think is that they were civilized, they were the educated people of the time. And they would try and make the Native Americans act a certain way, dress a certain way, and Native Americans who did not conform would be punished, and often that would result in wars and slaughters as well. And they would not necessarily hold back. There were times where Europeans went into entire villages and slaughtered anyone. The colonists started moving into the Native American lands after they won a battle. So if they, had a war over one little issue and they won, they would decide to take over that entire land. And the Native Americans saw that as the settlers being greedy and that they cannot be stopped, that they will stop at nothing. And enslavement was the last relationship connection. Often we think about African American slaves, but between 1492 and 1880, there were between 2 and 5.5 million Native Americans that were enslaved in the Americas. And they were usually used for slave labor, taking care of homes, helping out on farms, and they were usually prisoners of war. So it could be men, women, or children. It didn't matter. If a tribe lost to European settlers, they would take everyone within that tribe and use them for slave labor. And they even would send them back to Europe as slaves too. So the slave trade went multiple ways. They could sell Native Americans back to Europe. So, how did the interactions between Europeans and Native Americans impact each group? Europeans learned survival skills in the New World. They gained more land, so more power as well. Native Americans found some protection with the Europeans at first. Then Europeans often thought they were doing God's work. Sometimes they didn't even think that what they were doing was wrong. And many Native Americans died of disease. So Europeans got more glory, got more gold, more land, and the Native Americans, their entire way of living and their tribes were completely changed.